Hi, I'm Linda Vater, and I'm delighted to be partnering with Homeworthy to bring you into the garden, one of my favorite and I think most meaningful places to spend time. You may remember my tour of our Oklahoma City cottage, where my signature style first found a wider audience on the Homeworthy channel. My gardens reflect a mix of classic structure and cottage charm, shaped by years of hands-on experience, a lot of mistakes, and a deep appreciation for beauty in every season. Together, we'll explore timeless ideas, practical tips, and inspiration to help you create a garden that feels truly like home. Join me in living a garden-inspired life.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Well, it's cold outside, but that's because it's winter, and it's also a great time in the winter garden to kind of assess your landscape and ground covers and how they're used in your landscape in particular. And that's what I'm doing today. I thought I would share with you 5 of my favorite ground covers, which ones I really like, which ones I have kind of cast aside because they didn't work so well for me, and maybe some ground cover alternatives. So let's get started with number 1, a plant in my garden that you guys frequently ask about, and this is mondo grass. In contrast to monkey grass, that's liriope, mondo grass is a cushiony ground cover. It grows very short. It really likes good drainage. It's hardy down to about -10 degrees, and if you don't have a hard winter, then it will stay pretty much evergreen through the season, and it looks really beautiful right now, I think. Now, one of the downsides to mondo grass, as attractive as it is as a ground cover, is that it can be kind of expensive. So if you're able to share some of that or get someone to share it from their landscape with you, that is great. I also have found that a way to kind of mitigate that expense a little bit is to tuck it around flagstones. That serves kind of a dual purpose. You don't have to have as large a quantity of it, and you're also not stepping on it. So these pavers that go into my potager make wonderful little stepping stones, and I also love the way this cushiony mondo grass kind of frames each stepping stone. Now it comes in, this variety is dwarf mondo grass. There's a variety that's a little bit taller. It also comes in black. There's a black mondo grass that's beautiful, by the way, in container arrangements. And I've even seen mondo grass used as a house plant because it really is pretty easy. It doesn't require a ton of light, and it's I think it's just maybe something that you might want to try as an option. I myself am going to try it. I'm sorry, it's cold out and I'm having trouble getting my mouth to work. I'm going to try it as a house plant myself. Now, one other thing about mondo grass is that it will tell you, if you look at different kinds of literature or websites, it will tell you that it can handle full sun to part shade, but I have found definitely in the South, where it's a popular ground cover, that it really wants afternoon shade. Otherwise, in the dead of summer in July and August, this will turn kind of brown. It's like it goes dormant or something. The areas that are in part shade where I've got it planted, they can really handle the heat and the strong sun a lot better. But does it always bounce back? Absolutely. It's really tough, and it would be number 1 on my list of ground covers. Now let's move on to another area of my garden. Now on to number 2, which is ajuga. But before I talk about bugleweed or ajuga, I want to talk a little bit about my garden bench that was damaged in the ice storm. I told you that this armrest on the right-hand side had pretty much been demolished. I did, however, save the bits and pieces of it, and a number of you said, well, I could do a template and I could then have it repaired. And yes, because I don't like to throw things away that still have value, definitely I will have it repaired, but I also know that sometimes things get pushed down on my list of priorities and I may not make it around to this for a while. So it will easily be obscured by this hydrangea if I'm not as quick on the mark as I should be about getting it repaired before spring. So thank you for all of you guys that reminded me that I could get it repaired by a woodworker and a template. Okay, so back to ground cover. I love ajuga. It turns this gorgeous, gorgeous purple in the winter time. Now, it can come in different colors. This is just the classic form of bugleweed that will put out a dainty, lovely little spire of a blue flower in spring. It looks especially beautiful at that time, I think, with golden feverfew or anything else that's golden and low growing. But I like it because it will grow in areas where grass doesn't want to grow. So if you have spaces where lawn just doesn't want to get established, then you might consider growing ajuga. Now, ajuga can be a little bit finicky, I've found. I'll have it in some areas and it will be there for years and it will be just fine. And then there might be a particularly cold, wet winter or a hot summer and it will kind of fade out, though it never seems to fade out completely. So what I do then is I just allow it to scamper and grow wherever it will. It transplants very easily, so I can move it around if one area does get to be a little bit too sparse. But it's a great alternative where you can't grow grass and in an area that's got good drainage and really doesn't stay too wet or too dry. Now, it has a reputation of really liking to grow in the shade, and it will grow in the shade, but anecdotally I have found that it does pretty well in lots of sun too. So I definitely think you should try one of the different varieties. There's a variegated kind of a cream and green color that is beautiful, but I found it's not nearly as vigorous as just this standard common type. There's also one with a slimmer, more strap-like leaf that's called chocolate chip. It also is beautiful and does pretty well, but when I want just a really great performer with good vigor, then I always just go to the standard ajuga. Now, you may also find that if you get one of those varieties, it will ultimately revert back to the standard ajuga anyway. It's a great plant to ask for a start of from your friends that already have it growing in their landscape. So again, it transplants easily, it's not too demanding, and it's really beautiful. And like the mondo grass, I think it looks great when it starts to kind of creep over a hardscaping, or in this case, a soft hardscape of gravel and brick, which is my number 3 favorite ground cover. This entire area used to be nothing but vinca minor and some golden moneywort. And there would be times when it would be very vigorous, it would be dense, and it made a beautiful tapestry, a lovely montage with stepping stones in it that walked up to the garden bench. But I found that over time it just didn't persist. It wasn't reliable. And so in an aha moment, I just decided that I would do a combination of herringbone, brick, and gravel here. I didn't have to worry then about maintaining anything. I didn't have to water it. And more importantly, it didn't kind of come and go unreliably. Plus, I found that this solution was just far more beautiful. What I also like about it is little things that will come up and go to seed in the gravel. So I've got lots of larkspur that's gone to seed. It will bloom in the spring, and when it's done, I just pull it out. Now you say, well, what about weeds? And as you can see here, I've got a little bit of poana that's coming up through here. I also have some Mazus reptans that's gotten a little bit too vigorous in here. And all I have to do with that, clover sometimes is a problem. All I do with that is just pour boiling water on it, and it just goes away. And in the wintertime, it's a great chore to tackle. Come out here with a hot tea kettle, pour it on any little weeds that are coming up through the brick. Now you may ask me, is this on a bed of does it have a weed barrier? What is the underskirting to all of this? Nothing. It is just very flat dirt that I made sure was extremely level, and then this brick and the stones were just set into that so that they would be level and on grade with the turf. After that, all we did was sprinkle gravel into them. They're not concreted in. That way, if any of them become disrupted, I can easily fix it myself. It was, I think, an afternoon of work. This area I did myself, but there have been other areas in the landscape that someone else did for me. So it is an inexpensive job to do. You can get the brick at Lowe's. You can get pieces of flagstone also at a home improvement store. So it's a quick and easy solution. Another advantage is it makes a wonderful ground cover or a wonderful path, and a great solution if you've got a muddy area that leads up to your faucet or any area that really retains water. So this is a brilliant solution. So that is my number 2 ajuga, and my number 3 a combination of stone, brick, and gravel. Now let's go to number 4. Now, number 4 is actually a broad category, and that is using herbs as ground cover. I love to use herbs, and in particular too, I love various forms of thyme. Creeping thyme, woolly thyme, any kind of thyme. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love its scent. It attracts pollinators, and it's especially good in gardens that have more of a Mediterranean vibe and are a little bit drier and more arid. So if you're in California, it would be perfect for you. I also love using oregano as a ground cover. And for many, many years, right in front of the studio, I had a huge patch of golden oregano that very much looked like golden moneywort. It's a great doppelganger for that. But I think very much prettier and a little bit more unusual. It also tended to grow in a more clump-like fashion rather than in putting out tendrils. So in terms of it being a ground cover, I find it a little bit superior to golden moneywort, which I do like to use in hanging baskets, by the way. Now, I don't have any to show you right now because after about 15 years, it died out. I do have a little bit of just regular culinary oregano here, which also makes a good ground cover, and it also makes a great container plant. Now, I'm going to get more of it, and where will I get it? Well, I'm going to check at some of my better local independent nurseries here to see if they have it, but I'm also going to put a link below to a place called Mountain Valley. I believe it's out of California. I've checked out their website. They have it for sale in addition to lots of other herbs that they grow organically, because I just love the fragrance that they impart. I love the fact that they just kind of channel that edible landscape vibe that I love so much, and they're just beautiful. So as a broad category, look into different kinds of low-growing herbs in your landscape. One thing, if you find that they kind of come and go, as thyme does in my garden, then you want to make sure it gets really, really good drainage. Add lots of grit to the soil to amend it before you plant it. But then, like I did with the mondo grass, just plant it in between stepping stones, which will always look good in case your creeping thyme kind of doesn't always look its best. So there you go. Those are creeping herbs to use as ground cover. Now let's go to the front yard and I'll show you another one. Now I guess it would just really be an omission not to mention just regular old monkey grass when I'm talking about ground covers. And why I can't say it's necessarily one of my favorite, it is invaluable, I think, in growing in areas where you just absolutely can't get anything else to grow. And in about 2 weeks, I'm going to be cutting this back because it's going to start putting out new tufts of growth, and when I weed eat it back, I don't want to weed eat that fresh growth that's coming through. So if you need a cheap, very effective ground cover for a problem space, though it's not one of my favorite, you definitely can use monkey grass. So now let's come around here. Now remember, this would be my last and my favorite ground cover, and I discovered this through much trial and error. Now some of you may say, oh, there's so many other ground covers that are great. Why isn't she mentioning Pachysandra, and why isn't she mentioning this and moneywort and that? Well, it's because I garden in Oklahoma, and some of those things, they may be great where you garden, but they, for one reason or another, are kind of problematic for me. And I have found some of that out, again, just through experience in my own garden. By all means, if you have a ground cover that works for you, it's beautiful and it's effective, then by all means put it on your favorite list. So let me talk a little bit about my last category, and that is using shrubs as ground cover. So, voila. I tried growing Vinca minor and golden moneywort and all sorts of other things in front of my 100-year-old oak tree for years, and I never could get it established, probably because there was just too much competition from the tree itself. I just couldn't ever get a really homogeneous, filled in, good spread, good carpet of ground cover. So I decided to just use something that was mindlessly easy to grow and still beautiful, and that is this just dwarf Nana Nandina. I planted them densely. They filled this space beautifully. They look great in the winter time. They are practically fuss-free. They don't require a lot of water. I periodically, if they get a little bit lanky, all I have to do is just break off a piece, and they will put out new growth at the point of either pruning or breaking it. I can prune it pretty much any time of year at any point along the cane, including cutting it all the way back to the ground, and it will come out just beautifully. So in terms of a really easy care shrub as a ground cover, I highly recommend using this Nana Nandina. I also love Flirt, the tiny little finely bladed Nandina from the Southern Living Plant Collection. But for me, when nothing else would grow, this made a brilliant backdrop. It's handsome in and of itself, but as a foil upon which all of the other things that bloom in front of it can play, it's exceptional. So those are my 5 favorite ground cover solutions for my garden, and you might want to try giving them a try in your own gardens. By the way, if you have some that are just spectacular that I didn't mention, by all means, place the comment below so others can read them and try to share your suggestions in their gardens. Well, this is a subject that I have wanted to talk about for a pretty long time, and thankfully you guys give me many reminders and request it as a topic, and that's my 5 favorite blooming shrubs. Now, right now, front and center in the back garden is this absolutely fabulous Weigela. Now, this is a category of shrubs that's kind of old-fashioned, but now is experiencing, I think, a real resurgence in popularity. And if for no other reason, then there are so many wonderful new varieties and cultivars out right now. There's some with variegated foliage, with gold foliage, with dark foliage. There are compact forms. There's different colorations of it in terms of its tubular flowers. But I absolutely love this one. And anecdotally, I think this is one of those shrubs in my landscape that I would say every year performs really well, but this year I think it benefited from this extremely cold winter, because look at the profusion of blooms. It's absolutely spectacular, and I love the way these kind of dark cerise pink blooms look against this this gold foliage. Now, last year, you may remember, I think I did a video on it. about how I pruned it up from the bottom, and I'll see if I can locate that video and put a link to it. Because one thing that I consider to be a signature touch in my garden is that I love to take what could be a common form shrub or just a standard form bushy shape and really beautifully prune it into something spectacular. And last year I did that with this one. And Stuart, if you kind of can look below, you can see where all sorts of new suckers have come up, but you can also see where I exposed the trunks of the main plant itself. And I will do that again this year because it has assumed this just wonderfully beautiful, and you'll notice there's still some kind of dead wood in here I'm cleaning out, but umbral form. Stuart, if you can back up just a little bit so that you can kind of see the outline of the plant itself. Now, one of the reasons I love doing this is because it gives me room underneath to grow things. So just a matter of weeks ago underneath here were all sorts of Spanish bluebells and daffodils. It looks to me like there's some iris coming up underneath there, but I also like to really prune it up because it gives room for these gorgeous cascading branches to kind of just pendulously come out in a waterfall fashion from the center of the plant. So it's really, really beautiful. It happens to be the colors that I've got growing in my garden right now at this time of year. So that would be my #1 favorite flowering shrub as a category, Weigela, and I will also put some links to some Southern Living varieties that are really great that I hope to be able to try one day. Okay, so now let's move on to #2. Well, apparently I can't talk about my #2 favorite flowering shrub, and these aren't necessarily in order because I love all 5 probably equally, but that would be this fabulous Chinese snowball viburnum. Now, I've told you ad nauseum that I planted this probably about 8 years ago from I think it was a 2-gallon shrub, maybe even a gallon shrub from Lowe's, and it was $11. I had no idea what the mature height would be. Every year it just kept growing more, and when it got to a certain size in stature, I did my favorite thing where I pruned it up from the base to expose the beautiful architecture of the branches. And I like that because it lends importance, I think, to something that wouldn't be so spectacular otherwise, because then you have this great tension of the gorgeous foliage and the flowers against the architecture of the trunks of the tree itself, because it does become a small tree. Now, you can see right now, I intentionally did not go ahead and do my pruning so that you can see what it does and what ultimately you have to maintain to keep this form going. Now, I only do this maybe once a year or twice a year, and that's that I need to prune off all of the foliage and the branches that are growing out from the trunks themselves. And you'll also see at the bottom that there's all sorts of vigorous growth. But again, once I clear this out, it exposes the gorgeous bark and the textures of the tree itself. It also, again, gives me planting room underneath. Now, what's underneath here now is spent, but again, I had Spanish bluebells. I had some Miss Lemon Abelia that has kind of died out. It died out this winter, but it's coming back from the root zone. Overall, it just is definitely the queen of the spring garden. Some years in early spring when it blooms, you can't even see any foliage. It's completely covered in white blooms. This year it was very beautiful, but the blooms were larger but not as plentiful. So again, I think that is in response to some kind of weather event. Nevertheless, right now, if creates just a beautiful backdrop for the garden. It is a great focal point when I look out my kitchen window, and it continues to be valuable as my number 2 favorite flowering shrub. Now, let's go to number 3. Well, I said we were moving on to number 3, but I'm going to call this 2.5 because it's another wonderful viburnum. I'm going to put up some cards, some screenshot this cards that you guys can take a shot of, so you'll have them for future reference for characteristics about these different types of blooming shrubs. Now, in general, remember that you prune after bloom. So on all of these varieties that are blooming in spring, I won't prune on them until after they've already bloomed. If I pruned prior to that, I would be cutting off the flowers. Now this one isn't nearly so spectacular in terms of flowering. You can see that it's getting ready to bloom. I've got tight little flower clusters here. But what makes this one spectacular is the foliage. And the name of this one, I believe, is All That Glitters. There were 2 that I started from a quart-sized plant from Proven Winners years ago. There was All That Glitters and All That Glows, and I can't remember exactly which one this is. Nevertheless, it is absolutely beautiful. I love the way the glossy foliage illuminates the garden space, and then ultimately these flowers, which will turn white, will then produce blue, navy blue berries later in the year. Again, I'm going to be very curious to see how the cold temperatures affected its performance in terms of flowers and berrying. But this would be my 2.5, another viburnum that is staged beautifully in the foreground of my number 3, and that would be oak leaf hydrangeas. Well, here I am in my number 3 category of favorite blooming shrubs. I'm standing in my oak leaf hydrangea forest. I can't tell you how large these things get. I mean, I am 5'4", 5'5", so you can see how in the foreground how tall they are, and that's not to mention the background where they're even taller. I can't remember when they've had so many abundant blooms. Stuart, if you can show all of them back there that are just glowing in the late afternoon sun. These are going to be fabulous. Now when these bloom, and I'm not sure, this could be snowflake. I've got actually numerous varieties that are planted in here. I'll try to name some of the more popular ones, but these get huge. And they are, once I planted them here in this great location, they get, sun to semi-shade. They just really took off. And I transplanted these from the home that I lived in prior to this one, and they have just absolutely gone berserk. They've got almost like a primordial quality about them, kind of dinosaurish. They've gotten so huge. The foliage is every bit as captivating as the flowers, some of which will reach this long, I kid you not. I have actually created dried flower chandeliers out of the blooms in late summer and in early fall. So this is absolutely spectacular. And again, the foliage turns just a beautiful, beautiful bronzy red in the fall. And I take that into account when I am planting companion plantings like the barberries and things. Now, I'm not going to categorize this as one of my favorite shrubs, partly because it just, I think, can be difficult for some people to grow, though I've had great success with it. And that would be the Deutzia that's usually, it's about to come out of bloom. I think there might be a few flowers over there, Stuart, that are still fresh. But the rest of these just finished blooming in an absolutely gorgeous white. To me, it's a quintessentially English garden plant, shrub. It's spelled Deutzia, and I will list this one also. I think now there are more compact forms, some that maybe bloom in pink. It reminds me a little bit of Bridal Wreath Spirea, but I really like this better. I've showed it many times. It's part of my spring white montage, but it looks absolutely gorgeous in the foreground of this oak leaf hydrangea, which has this kind of wonderful bone coloration to the stems of the leaves and in the veining. Equally, I think, as gorgeous as the flowers in the plant itself. So the synergy that's created with the deutzia in the foreground and the white when it's in bloom with this wonderful, wonderful whitish silvery underside of these oak leaf hydrangeas couldn't be more beautiful. Obviously, I will show you these again in the future when they are in their full glory, and I'll probably be cutting massive bouquets to bring into the house. Now let's move on to the next one. Well, I just can't resist. This would be 3.5. It's another oak leaf hydrangea that absolutely I have fallen in love with. Now, this is a southern living plant. It's Hydrangea terra. It's an oak leaf hydrangea. You can tell from its really distinctive leaves, but it has one of the most perfect hydrangea blossoms I've ever seen. Now, Stuart, if you can do a real close-up on the bloom itself, look how tightly packed those individual buds of this flower are. It's unbelievable. In fact, I still have from 3 years ago, I've got one dried hydrangea bloom from a terra hydrangea that is still absolutely perfect and so compact. They almost don't look real. So I got another one that I'm going to put in here in this same location because some of the things over this winter didn't make it, but obviously this did, and it's thriving. Now, a number of you have told me that you've been on the lookout for these and you've had a hard time finding them. I'm going to try to do a little bit of research with Southern Living to see where they can be found. I'll do some research for online, plants by mail, other places like that, because you are going to want to get one of these in your garden to put on your list. If you can't find it now, look for it later. It's a terra oak leaf hydrangea. That's my bonus 3.5. Now let me move on to number 4. Well, now, surely you say, surely she is going to mention those queens of the garden, roses. Well, truth be told, I have a mixed relationship with roses in general and some in particular. Now, I, like you, I mean, what would a garden be without at least one rose? And I have grown many over the years, but sadly, a number of them succumbed to rosette disease, even those that were supposedly resistant. And it's just in their DNA, I think, that all roses, regardless of their disease tolerance, are going to have some issues with black spot and spider mite and other kinds of things. And let's face it, if they're really thorny, they are just not necessarily one of the more fun things to have to tend, prune, and maintain. That said, I couldn't imagine a garden without at least one David Austin rose, my absolute favorite of all the categories of roses, for their fragrance, for their growth form, for the shape of their flowers, for their old-fashioned qualities, for their delicious colors. I've grown many over the years, and if you were going to try a rose, if you have not heretofore grown a rose, absolutely, you need to try a David Austin rose. Just like everybody in their life should own a convertible at one point in time, everybody in their life should grow a David Austin rose. Now, there's other varieties that have much to commend them. Some of the drift roses, this is one of them. I have shown you in the past, Stuart, if you can very slowly turn around, you can see this was basically, it came off of a Lady Diana rose, another drift rose that was planted here. The mother rose succumbed to rose rosette, and this just came up, it somehow had layered itself and propagated itself in the ground. But in general, if you have to have a rose, then just do some research first. I would definitely look towards the heirloom roses, towards David Austin roses, and maybe some of the varieties that tend to be very specific in their application, like ground cover roses or drift roses. Now, let's end up at number 5. Well, never let it be said that as a gardener, I cannot learn, evolve, and change my mind. I can remember at one time when I really was not a fan of Encore azaleas. That was very, very early on in their development when they'd just been introduced to the market. And that was my own failing, because I tend to be kind of a purist. And I thought, oh, I don't want azaleas that don't bloom in their own time. I didn't want them to repeat bloom in the fall. I was just a purist. I liked the old-fashioned azaleas, and I still do. But now I have reframed how I look at them, and I am so captivated by all of their assets that I've completely overcome my initial resistance, because Encore azaleas, they just are a wonderful plant. Now, sadly, I don't have any to show you in bloom right now because we had such a hard winter. I've told you ad nauseum, we got down to record lows, -13. But here in the garden, I had some Encores that hadn't even been in the ground very long, and I'll be darned if they didn't survive. Look at this. They have put out all sorts of new growth. Now, I say prune after bloom, but these, they had a lot of dead wood because there was so much winter kill, so I went ahead and cut these back. These should bloom with a good feed. I'll give them some holly tone, and they should bloom beautifully this fall, especially now because I have more light here. Now, one of the biggest mistakes you can make with Encore azaleas is that we don't give them enough light to really bloom heavily. But if you are looking for something, a flowering shrub in almost any color palette, in any range, in any hue of pink or red or white, or a mixture of pink and white, or this gorgeous one, this one is called Autumn Belle, in a beautiful corally color, then I promise you there's an Encore azalea for you. Just look. Once they get established, they are tough as nails. I do think they need a little bit of maintenance to keep really a beautiful form. Some of them can get kind of lanky when untended, but that doesn't keep them from blooming. They, like I say, they're the most favorite reblooming azalea on the market. They will rebloom in October. So when I started looking at them as just a whole different category of blooming shrub and quit looking at them as kind of a classic azalea, it completely transformed the way I think about them. And if you're someone that doesn't want to put out just flat after flat of annuals for seasonal color in the spring and fall, look to Encore azaleas, which are really, for me this year, get an A+ for toughness, durability, and their capacity to withstand extreme temperatures. So I'll try to put some of my favorite varieties up. They're easy to find just about everywhere, and that completes my list of my 5 favorite blooming shrubs in my garden. Now, do I have others that I don't have room to grow? Yes, but that will be for another day. A gardener is always thinking about the future. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Upper Terrace and Signature Style Saturday. We have so many fun projects going today. We're going to topiary a sunshine ligustrum. We are going to start an Easter basket for our Easter table. I want to show you a really dramatic vignette that I'm creating in the back, which is almost finished, starring Platinum Beauty Lamondra. Well, what do you say, Stuart?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, I had a group of about 30 here day before yesterday. They were from a local walking group from a nearby church. And a number of people were asking me if I could name one plant that was Oklahoma tough for the summer and had really good, almost four-season interest, what would it be? And the first thing that came to mind for me is sunshine ligustrum, or I say ligustrum, you say ligustrum. Whichever way you say it, it is absolutely wonderful in the garden. And I grow it in a couple of different ways. I like it kind of full and flouncy. You know, it can get to be 3 to 6 feet high or 3 to 4 feet wide. And I like to grow it beautifully where there's kind of movement to it, and when there's a breeze, it kind of blows. But where I like to use it a little more dramatically, and that is when I kind of topiary it. Now, at the other house, I topiaried it into kind of a conical shape, and I used it back in the potager. Here on the upper terrace, right in proximity to the beautiful East Friesland salvia, this is where I think it really is gorgeous. So you might want to screenshot this image because it is just beautiful with the blue and with the pinks. It's just gorgeous. But I also like the fact that up there I have it clipped a little bit more tightly. So how do you do that? Well, as I've always said, when you are topiarying anything, you just have to be a little bit brave. Remember, if you make a wrong cut, it will grow out. So this one, and by the way, when you are shopping for yours, and I just saw a whole big display of these at my local, I can't remember if it was Lowe's or Home Depot, but they had some gorgeous specimens. And what you want to do is kind of buy one that's already assuming the shape that you want. So if you want it to be tall and flouncy, buy one that's kind of already assuming that shape. But if you're like me, and a lot of times you are clipping and pruning them into more of a spherical form or kind of a smushed spherical form, kind of like a pancake form, then buy it as close to that shape as possible. So you can do this in a number of different ways, you guys. I sometimes just use scissors, and you can do that because when the new growth comes out, it is very tender. It is very easy to clip. You don't have to have any special tools whatsoever, just an inexpensive pair of shears that you use just for that purpose. And sometimes after it's already in place and I'm just trying to kind of clip it to keep it within that globular form, then I use scissors. When I'm first establishing the form, then I might want to use some long-handled pruners. And you guys know I have two favorites. This is my long-bladed, I should say, Barnell pear. And that's hard to say. That's hard for me to say. And I can definitely use these. And I kind of start at the top and I work my way down. Sometimes when I'm pruning them before they get in the ground, these are almost a little too long. And in that case, I might use these Okasuni pruners because they're not quite as long. And when I'm working on a table or something, they're a little bit more manageable in size. And typically, you know, when I do this, it's a no-brainer. It's common sense. Most of gardening is common sense. I try to have something underneath to catch my clippings. And then you just go around the perimeter. This is easy, but the difference between the before and after, I think, is pretty amazing. And the thing is that this ligustrum it's hardy all the way down to zone 6. So my family in Indiana was asking me if they can grow it, and I said, oh yes, I think you can grow it. And especially now with every place getting a little bit hotter, look to a lot of the plants that have historically just been for the South, and most of them, and certainly most of them in the Southern Living Plant Collection would fall into that category. So I just try to get as much symmetry as possible. And by the way, if you want to take some of those clippings and use them somehow in sweet, tiny little bouquets, they would be perfect for spring, perfect for Easter, without much fuss at all. And when you have these established in your garden, not only that, you're just pruning from your own landscape, and it's an inexpensive way to make lots of tiny bouquets. Now, I like the definition to be as much on the bottom as on the top. I kind of needed a bigger table, you guys. So here is the first of my questions of the day. Do you guys, if you grow ligustrum, do you like it more flouncy and cascading and full and billowy like that I have on the east side? Or do you like it in a more spherical shape? Or do you like it both ways? Can you swing both ways? So okay, so look at how pretty that's looking. And periodically I just torque it. And then you can see which is the prettiest vantage point, which is the most perfect. And by the way, of course, over time, as you continue to shear it and as it continues to grow, it gets more perfect in form. If you're kind of a perfectionist like moi, it gets more perfect in time. So we're gonna put like a plant profile up right here, Stuart, on it, and so you guys can screenshot this and look at its profile and see if it's right for you. So as I have said many, many times, probably one of my favorite combos is this chartreuse yellow, especially in the springtime, and purple. So when all of my larkspur is in bloom, it's going to be fabulous. So here's kind of a planting tip. If you are going to marry this plant with some others that are blooming, I highly recommend any kind of blue salvias. I would recommend larkspur. I would recommend any kind of veronicas in that lavender. But if you like really bright primary colors, I think it would look great with red too. So right now, my tulip palette in the front, mostly pinks, but boy, this would look gorgeous if you had a really, really deep red as well. So there you go. Here is a gift that keeps on giving through the seasons in containers. And by the way, it does brilliantly in containers. I have even planted it in window boxes before. It looks great in kind of an urn where you've got this tight spherical form and then cascading around the edge and down the sides. You could have some kind of seasonal color. I think it would be fabulous with some kind of cascading calibrachoa or million bells in red or in purple. I think that would be fabulous. Scaviola in that wonderful periwinkle blue purple would be great. So it's just kind of how do you like to play with your Crayola color box. So there you go, one of my favorite plants to play with, Sunshine Ligustrum, and as always, you guys, I'll put a link below. Well, come on in, everyone, to at least the dining patio in the backyard. I've got it, I would say 95% staged the way I want it to be. There'll definitely be more plants coming in that will populate the plant stands and things. But, and you can probably hear in the background Javier and Sergio working on the other side, but I want you to come in because this is what I've been going for. This money shot, so that when all of this stuff is grown out and filled in and mature, it will be almost gasp worthy when you come through the gate. And how I am achieving that is a plant I'm a little bit obsessed with right now. I have shown it to you in the past. I kind of thought I might want it up on the steps, but I have changed my mind on that. and it is Platinum Beauty Lamandra. Now this is hardy only down to zone 8, but that's why I've got it in pots, so I can bring it in. But when you come and you get the long view over here to this planter box, and I will be putting in one more stepping stone here, it looks absolutely stunning flanking either side of the planter box. And I love the way when you come into the backyard, it's a completely different emotional vibe because the color palette is different. There's lots of grays. It has more of a Pacific Northwest vibe to it, I think, more, maybe even a little bit Mediterranean or coastal. And because of that, I wanted a different color palette. So back here, I am playing with the more intense reds, oranges, golds, those kind of colors in my crayon box. And the Platinum Beauty Lamandra gives me just the color, kind of neutral color palette that I want, and definitely a different, more cascading form for all of these plants to play on. So in the back here, I've used lots and lots of mounded plants, which I love, that rounded, mounded form. I've showed you guys my inspiration picture a number of times. So what I wanted was a dramatic counterpoint to these rounded forms, because that's kind of what gives emotional, visual, sensual interest, I think. And the Platinum Beauty is giving just the feel that I want. I love the way it cascades. I love the way that the variegation in it kind of brightens up this space and how it punctuates the corner. And then right now, I've got just my favorite kind of tomatoey red. I've got that in the box, and obviously, I don't know, Stuart, if you can see, there's already bees over here. They're already loving my composition.
Your pop of color.
My pop of color, and so these reds. Now, eventually, the geraniums, once it starts getting hotter and it's time for peppers and cherry tomatoes and things like that to cascade over the side, these will move, and this will be an edimental container with really ornamental edibles that I think will be beautiful in here. And I can just see those red cherry tomatoes cascading over and kind of insinuating themselves into the Platinum Beauty Lamandra. Now, in the past, this is kind of what I'm excited about. I have used this with some people that I've worked with in their gardens, largely in a pool setting, where we had them running up and down the steps, walking down to a pool, flanking the corners of poolside, because they can really handle the heat. They can handle reflected light off of pavement. But here I wanted to use them in a completely different way. And it's all trial and error. So I just kind of kept moving them around until I had my aha moment that this is where they need to be. And I think it's beautiful. So I've got this kind of verticality of them. They even have a little bit of these flower heads in here. And then I've got beautiful bold-leaved, just red pelargoniums. And then I've got some elephant bush. Now this will again change a little bit as it gets warmer, as I put in edibles, but what will remain, what the fixture plant is this Platinum Beauty Lamandra, because
That you said it, we hadn't gotten
oh yeah, the elephant bush. And this will probably be relocated. As I said, the geraniums will probably be relocated. But right now, what I know for sure is that this stuff is going to stay here for the duration and into fall, and up until it goes into the greenhouse when temperatures start to really dive. So I think it looks wonderful. Stuart, here, let's put up a profile of Lamandra, of Platinum Beauty, and it truly is beautiful in all of its grassiness. We'll definitely put a link below. But here's my second question of the day. Actually, it's got two parts. if you grow Platinum Beauty, or if you are going to grow it, what colors would you grow it with? I can see it looking just dynamite with maybe Gold Sturm Rudbeckia, some of the gold colors. Magenta, I think, would be a really dark cardinal color. I think that would be beautiful. But it could also play with softer colors, whites and pinks. But this is how I'm using it. So if you grow it, if you plan to grow it, in the comments below, give us all more ideas of how this brilliant, really tough plant could be styled. And Stuart, right here, let's put up a picture of not only the plant profile, but let's put up a picture of how we styled it over at my friend Wendy's by her pool. We had it cascading up and down the steps. It was such a fun day when we styled that. So a couple of different ways, but I think it's going to give me just the look, just the feel that I want back here on the patio. I'll have not only the brilliant architectural look of it, but it's got movement, and it kind of blows and it cascades, and it's got kind of a waterfall effect. So I love that. Tell me your thoughts. Make sure to comment below. Well, here's another design tip. If you decide on your color palette for a space, see if you can carry that color palette through the seasons. So obviously when it gets to be summer, I'll have the intense reds of things like salvias and maybe coleus and just different different kinds of maybe pineapple sage, plants like that, that will bring in the red tones that I want. But I'm mindful of that even in the spring. So last year when I was composing, I was thinking about what I wanted to do back here. I knew that that was the emotional vibe that I wanted to have, was with those reds, golds, and colors that were a little bit deeper. And so I took that into account, and the color palette back here is decidedly more orange and red and gold. And you can see just a hint of that beginning right now with these tulips. I can't exactly remember which blend from Color Blends this was, but I love its arching form, and I'm going to take note of that. All of the ones that I planted in the front tend to be very chalice shaped, very cup shaped, and kind of vertical and squatty. The stem is beautiful, and it kind of arches, and even before it blooms, the bud itself is much more tapered and delicate, and I love that. So in my garden journal, I am going to be recording that this is a blend I definitely want to use again next year. I'll research what it was, and I'll make sure to put it in the links below. One of my favorite things about spring, and particularly around Easter, is that I can cut things from my garden, whether they are in bloom or they're not, to make my own Easter baskets, Easter buckets, Easter boots, whatever it is that I am composing for the Easter holiday. And I love this time of year because there's kind of this transition between the woody brown of winter and the fresh green of spring, and I love that. And I think it especially speaks to kind of almost what I would call a nest aesthetic for Easter. And one of my favorite plants to cut from, really almost any time of year, is Encore azaleas. So I've got some here that are not yet in bloom, but they have just what I want. They've got the fresh green growth that's coming out of the woody stem, and in some cases, yes, neon. And in some cases, you can even see on the woody stem where the tender little new buds are, the new tufts of green that are coming out. So I am willing, as profusely as they bloom on this hedge here, I am willing to sacrifice a couple of the blooms. These have buds in them, but simply because I love the way the canes look, and I love the color of the foliage on it. So I'm cutting some of these to use in an Easter basket composition, and soon enough it will be April, which to me is all about azaleas. Right now it's still a little bit early, but boy, by the time these are in full bloom, they'll be spectacular. So I've got some here that I'm using just for the stems and the leaf leaf color and the foliage. But let's go around here. I see a few early blooms, and I'm going to cut those. Well, in the front, I've often mentioned that I have mostly whites and pinks in terms of encore azaleas because I like that romantic color palette, but the back has a different vibe. So I have planted some autumn coral, these little autumn coral right here. I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. These guys are dwarf, and they're going to top out at 2.5 inches high and 3 feet wide, or 2.5 feet, I should say, high and 3 feet wide. And so once they ultimately mature, I may move some of them to the back, but right now it fits in perfectly with my color scheme and with my low mounding plant palette that I have surrounding the dining deck, and I think it's going to be beautiful. And look here, I can't wait because I am seeing, I do too.
They have a much like pointier.
Yeah, the foliage,
yeah,
it tends to be more of a sword-like leaf, and I've got a bud on it already. And these were just planted. So when these, so when these are in full bloom, I will definitely show you those, because April is, I just think April is azalea month. And specifically our favorite reblooming azalea is encore azalea.
So nice they bloom twice.
Well, as long as I'm going to be going around to the other side of the cottage, I am going to take this moment to kind of groom along the brick wall a little bit and just appreciate how spectacular the tulips look. I mean, at first I wasn't real pleased with the performance of the blend, and that was because some of them just bloomed by themselves a little too early, but now it is spectacular, if I do say so myself.
Look at that yellow-orange guy all by himself right there.
Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah, that's sunshine. Oh, this guy
yeah,
right here.
That one.
Yeah, isn't it beautiful?
Stand
That
out,
is,
yeah.
I think that, I'm not sure. That might have been an interloper. So we're going to walk along here.
I'm going slower.
And this is a fun little fact. This one right here is called akabono.
Say what?
Akabono. I think it's probably a Japanese name. It's got that beautiful yellow foliage or yellow petals, but tinged in red on the end. A great color echo. I love that. So I'm going to appreciate these as I walk along the wall, not only to appreciate them, but also to look and see if there's anything else that I might want to cut from in the garden. And I spy a couple of things that might also have that kind of vibe of the encore azaleas, and that is a couple of stems of kaleidoscopabelia. Okay, so this has that look, that early spring look of woody meets emerging leaf growth that I just love. So I'm going to cut a few of that, and the more I cut, believe me, the fuller this will get. Obsession Nandina for me is more of a fall thing, but I'm going to round the corner.
Can we take a second to enjoy the fact that the light has already lasted this long?
Yeah, the light is just incredible today. Really, really incredible. It's making everything pop. And then why don't we take a break here, and I will meet you back on the other side. Okay, well, come on up to the upper terrace. I still have to clean up after topiaring my sunshine ligustrum, and I will do that a little bit later, but it is happy work because everything looks so beautiful out here. So I'm going to let Stuart just kind of give you a glimpse of the pretty garden while I come over here and I clip some branches from these encores that have some more blooms. Isn't that bird song amazing? I really want the encores to be the star of this composition, and I'm going to cut some of these blooms over here. You see I've got some of these. I think this is the Moonlight encore. But look at how prettily that's coming together.
That's cool.
And how just the different foliage looks just so gorgeous and so springy. So I am going to cut just a few. And the nice thing, the thing I love about encore azaleas is I know I can cut from them and I don't have to be stingy, because since they rebloom, I will have plenty more flowers to come. Look at how pretty that is.
It's a perfect shot.
Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that gorgeous? While I'm here, I might cut a little daffodil to play in the mix. This is what I call kind of gardening by Tussie Mussy, where you just hold something in your hand and you put it together in a composition, and if it looks beautiful in your hand, then it will probably look beautiful in a vase. Now, how springy does that look?
It's pure spring.
And again, I could get a completely different feel. You concentrate on that, Stuart. I'm going to come over here. I could get a completely different feel in my Easter bouquet if I used a different color.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of grooving on that white.
It definitely.
But look at how different it would change if I brought in pinks.
It works really well, though.
And I believe this is pink carnation. It will get more intensity of color a little bit later. But really, as far as a shrub goes, encore azaleas are absolutely indispensable. And as much because I love the looks of their stem as anything else. And even on occasion, even if I don't have any other blooms, if it's a time of year when the encores aren't in bloom, maybe even in winter, a lot of times I will just use the stems and then I will add my own blooms. So Stuart, what do you say? Let's take these beauties to the back and put together our centerpiece. Okay, I have all of my beautiful cuttings with encore azalea stems kind of being the diva in this Easter basket composition. I'm just using kind of a rustic meets delicate, kind of a high-low vibe. I just have 2 of these galvanized buckets, and I'm going to make 2, starting with this one right now. So all I've done is just got my cuttings here, and then I'm just gonna start playing, kind of using the azalea as a framework, because in addition to being beautiful with this dark kind of amber color stem, it also makes good structural support for the other things that I put in. Now I'm going to take my pruners and I'm going to do a vertical cut right there so that it can absorb the water more easily. See what I did there? Okay. And then I'm going to insert the cuttings into this wood pulp oasis. Now, I've told you guys about this before, and I like it a lot better than the other synthetic stuff. It's compostable, and I think it'll work fine. And ignore all just ignore all of the activity. Yeah, Stuart, I don't know. We may have to shoot this again, but I apologize. There's just always activity, and right now I think we've got some weed eaters. It will probably fade out over time. Okay, so right here, maybe I should just go quiet. I should just go quiet. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here. And I like to put in the azalea stems first, again, because they are woody and they are a good support system. The other thing is I kind of like to put them around the perimeter so that they will kind of overhang. And can you see that wood pulp in there?
Got a shot of it.
Yeah. And I have really, really hydrated it. It's been soaking for about an hour. And I, of course, will keep watering this. And I'll probably have to zhuzh it a little bit before Easter because we're still a week out. But I'll probably have to zhuzh this arrangement so it still looks beautiful in time for Easter. But why is that easy to do? Because these are all cuttings of azaleas from my garden. And this wood pulp makes it really easy to insert them so that they kind of torque or arch in the direction you want them to go.
It has a very real organic look to it.
It does. It's very, we would call that Constant Spry. And Constant Spry was just a wonderful Victorian time floral designer. And she was the one who made cuttings from our gardens a more gardeny look, if you will. She was the one who really popularized that. Prior to that, it was more kind of, I don't know, kind of FTD looking. Ooh, that's a gorgeous branch right there. And you know what, Stuart? While we are waiting for the noise to go away, why don't you show some pretty pictures of the Encore azalea arrangement we made a couple of falls ago, and it was Encore azaleas and apples. A friend of mine, I really like this white. The ones that I've planted in the front are largely white. And a friend of mine who only plants white in her garden has planted a lot of, I believe it was Moonlight, or it might have been one of the other varieties, because you know Encore has so many different varieties and different hues. Might have been Autumn Lily.
Also a Linda.
Yes, also a Linda. Linda Kavanaugh. Now, I want a little bit of verticality, and I want to play up.
Oh, that was cool, just how sparse they are on it the whole way up.
Yeah.
Oh, it reminds me of Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. And I may tuck a little bunny or something in here. Now, a trick that I'm going to use for these daffodils is...
Something got in my ear.
Something gotcha? Something gotcha? I noticed that the mosquitoes are already out.
Oh no, I thought I might have just felt one.
So a tip, when I insert the daffodils, first what I want to do is take something woody and puncture it so that when I get ready to put the daffodil in place, there's already a hole for it to go.
Oh, because it's not a very sturdy
Because
stem?
the stem is not sturdy, it's a lot softer.
Ah, good advice. That was a tip.
It never fails that when we are ready to meet you guys and shoot, that somebody has to come and blow. And we wait till they were finished, but you know, I'm getting ready to go to the Home and Garden Show here shortly and meet a bunch of you. So we're trying to get this done. So how's it looking, Stuart?
Beautiful.
So this is where I need to kind of go like this. It's kind of oriented that way. And then I will finish this up. Here is one. And then I will do the big reveal of the both of them on my Easter table which I am so thrilled, Stuart. I may have not been able to have Thanksgiving out here in the back, but I am definitely going to be able to have Easter, at least thus far. That is what the weatherman is telling me. And I've got a big crowd coming over. So this kind of garden vibe will just be perfect. Ooh, I like the way that looks. I think it looks very sweet, very, very springy, very befitting the holiday and the season, and all with cuttings from my own garden, starring the lovely Encore Azalea. So there you go. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I love it. It is garden fresh. Encore azaleas are simply brilliant. I love it. Make sure to come back and see what it looks like in the context of my beautiful Easter table. I think we're going to be able to serve and have Easter outdoors. At least that's what the weatherman is telling me. Maybe not Thanksgiving, but definitely Easter. Also, make sure to tune in this Wednesday because it's going to be all about boxwood. I'm going to start talking about better boxwood, the blight-resistant boxwood, but also answer lots of questions I've been getting about boxwood in general. So just stay tuned for that, and in the meantime, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.